We're good in 30 seconds.
Refreshingly, my first and last name are much simpler.
15 seconds.
I know.
Hey, we're down to about 15 seconds, right?
5, 4, 3, 2.
Good afternoon. We will begin the Calcasieu Parish public briefing for Hurricane Laura response. Today is September 1st, and it's 4 p.m. We're in the parish government building. I'm Brian Beam, Calcasieu Parish Administrator, and we have a pretty standard agenda each time. We want to hit some high points, and then we got a few other announcements today. So let's start off with Dick Grimion, Emergency Preparedness Director for Calcasieu Parish.
Thanks, Brian. Yesterday we talked about some points of distribution for water, food, ice, and tarps, and we've added a couple more. Let me just read the list for you. The Lake Charles Civic Center, 900 Lakeshore Drive in Lake Charles. McMurray Park, 300 South Hazel in Sulphur. That one may be moving. I'll have information on that tomorrow. Iowa Middle School, 400 West Miller Avenue in Iowa. Walmart Marketplace, that's on Sam Houston Jones Parkway in Moss Bluff. Railroad Museum in DeQuincy, that is 400 Lake Charles Avenue. Vinton Elementary School, 1603 Grace Avenue. Washington Marion High School, 2802 Pineview Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana. And Westwood Elementary, 1900 Sampson Street in Westlake. We are continuing to work on these pods, and we may be, and we'll be announcing more information on that at tomorrow's briefing.
One correction, the Vinton side is
1600 Hampton in Vinton. Oh, I'm sorry. Vinton High School. Oh, Vinton Elementary, but I gave the wrong address, right?
Correct.
1600 Hampton Street, Vinton, Louisiana. Sorry about that, Mayor. But as I said, we're continuing to work on other ways to get, we realize there's a need for distribution around the parish, and we're working on solutions for that. Jerry Stoller with FEMA is going to speak later, but I want to remind you, try to get registered with FEMA as quickly as possible. If you don't register, you won't be eligible for any FEMA assistance, and I'm going to ask Jerry to explain that when he comes, and he'll have the 800 number and a website where you can when you can register, and I think there's also a telephone number, right, Jerry? Okay. So telephone, whatever, you should be able to get into it. Just a couple of safety tips. The sheriff, I'm sure, is going to mention this also. There's a lot of traffic on the road. Is hampering our recovery efforts. So unless you just absolutely have to go somewhere, we'd ask you to stay home. A reminder, we still have a curfew in effect at night. So the less traffic on the road, the easier it's going to be for the power companies to get the electricity restored. And again, emphasize generator safety. There's a lot of generators out there. Make sure you have it in an area where it's not able to emit carbon monoxide into your dwelling or the structure that you're in. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dick. We'll next hear from the law enforcement part of things from Sheriff Tony Mancuso.
We only had 4 arrests last night. We had one for looting, one for second-degree battery, and the Lake Charles Police Department had one for looting and one for domestic. The other police departments are reporting just minor incidences that they've had, and we're able to do that without arrest. I want to reiterate what Dick said about the curfew. We have, our utility companies are pleading and begging with us to try to ask the public to keep this down to a minimum. We just still have a lot of people that are sightseeing and joyriding just to see all the devastation and the destruction, and it's not working. All you're doing is keeping our recovery from progressing, and they are making progress, but it's gonna take longer if we don't let them do their jobs. And that doesn't just go for utility workers, it goes for all of our public works in our municipalities that have to get water districts back up and drainage districts back up and things like that. So trash pickup, debris removal, so we can get trash trucks into, all these things have to work in sequence. So it's very, very important that we do this. Scams. I want to talk about, I know we got a couple reports today of somebody calling and asking about, can we come to your house? If you pay us up front, we'll be there tomorrow. We'll do this, this, and this. Do not take a phone scam. Do not give anybody money over the phone. You have a person-to-person contact with somebody you want to enter into a contract with. Most of your local contractors here, and I'm not telling you who you can or cannot use, do not make any deals with anybody over the phone, period. All right? They are scams. We had verified it today. We've tracked them down. Do not make any arrangements for anything to your house over the phone. You look that contractor in the face. The police jury is working right now on credentialing. All these companies kind of converge on communities when these things happen. And although they're wonderful and great to have because it speeds up the progress, it's still, we have to credential those persons, make sure they have liability insurance, and they're working on that. But we're 5 days into this, y'all. It takes time to do these things. The police jury is working hard on that, and they're going to get that. They're that mechanism in place. So in the meantime, contractors here locally may not ask you for any money up front. They may tell you, this is what we're going to do, this is how much you're going to pay. If you want to pay somebody up front, pay them at the end of the day when you think half the work's been done or a quarter of the work's been done. You are in charge of what's going on, you the public. It's up to you how you decide you want to do it in that contract to read. But keep in mind, many of these outside contractors won't be here in 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, whatever. And you won't have the warranty or the deal. They're going to be gone and they don't care. They may be from Kansas City. You don't know where they're going to be from. So I'm going to say it again. I'm not telling you you have to use local vendors, but at least your local vendors here, we have a course a course that we can do to them if they scam you and take advantage of you. So scamming, don't do any deals on the phone about your property and what's taking place. Driving dangers, I've beat this into the ground and beat this into the ground for 5 days about how dangerous it is out there. Although our roads, again, I don't know how they've done it, but our roads seem to be doing much better and they're improving. Things are progressing. I said this every day. We've had more resources. We've had more progress, in my opinion, to date in 5 days than we ever had 3 weeks into Rita. So we're doing good. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. We have no electricity still, and that's still a pretty good ways out. So that makes us all uptight and miserable because we're hot and tired and ready to get that fixed. But we're just going to have to be patient there. Curfew, Dick mentioned it. I'm going to mention it every day. Get off the roads. Dark time coming 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Start packing up and getting going and get off the roads. I told you last night we have a tremendous amount of resources here, local police departments, sheriff's offices from all over the state that are helping us, the National Guard that is helping us. We have all the resources here, so we're working extremely hard on that. Just a progress, I'm sure, nobody's really, I haven't given this on, I had severely damaged buildings at the sheriff's office. We've made a tremendous amount of progress with the help of some engineering crews from the National Guard, and our private insurance company who has sent resources in. You know, we're getting it. We're back. We never stopped operating, but we're actually functioning a little more efficiently and a little better. And I think that'll just continue to get better and better every day. But it's just going to take a lot of time. So that's our report. Colonel Conroy will come up and kind of follow me, I think, whenever. Is that correct, Colonel? You got any questions, Teresa, before I?
Did you mitigate the damage? You can't just leave it all out there, you know, blowing in the breeze, so.
Right. I don't have a solution, but I feel like they are welcome to stay here in their homes. It's hot and miserable. So most people are, you're right, are choosing. And again, we're just gonna have to be patient. It's gonna take you longer to come in, and it's gonna take you longer to get out. You can stay at your home. We're not telling you you can't. Some people cannot stay at their home. So, you know, the roads are getting better and better, so I feel like maybe some of that will clear up, not say clear up, help the situation, because for, you know, up until today's the first time I really felt like at least the debris is off the roadways. And then you have to compound that with our utility workers are desperately on, you know, they're blocking lanes and making a two-way street a one-way street, and they're making a four-way street, you know, a double lane. So, you know, but we got to let them work. They're the most important thing. They're probably right now, other than water and sewer, electricity is our most important progression that we can have, and we need to help them do that. So the answer to your question is, I don't have a solution of how to do it, but we do, the people, us, the public. We stay off the roads. We come in, go straight to our destination, don't go looking around. I do think people are just driving around looking to see what's tore up, and if we stop that, that solves a lot of our problems. Come in, get to your destination, do your work, and if you're going to Lafayette or Beaumont, I know a lot of people are staying in Lafayette and Beaumont, you know, leave yourself some lead time, because it's going to take you some time. So, thank you. Sorry, Colonel.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Beam. And thank you, Mr. Gremion. We've had a really very productive day here with the National Guard. As Mr. Gremion briefed, we've got a number of pods out there, 6 pods. Quick update. The North Lake Charles pod at Washington Marion High School and the West Lake pod at 1900 Sampson will open tomorrow. They're not open right now. On the security side, we've continued our presence here. We've got about 360 soldiers and airmen providing security, and it's continuing. Pawn shops, pharmacies, gun shops, Chenault Airport, the places you imagine that we're going to need additional security, and we're working through the sheriff's office for that as well. Lily pad operations are continuing. We are supporting the parish in 48 to 72 more hours, and it really just depends on what the parish need is. If the need goes beyond that, we'll continue to do that. And lily pad operations are helping folks move from their homes, devastated parts of the parish, up to shelters. But we will continue that and continue to support the parish as long as the parish is requesting that. And finally, to double down on what the sheriff said about routes, we've largely completed our portion of the route clearance, the part that we can do, pushing debris to the side, and we have moved toward clearing up parking lots around the schools, the 70-odd schools that are here in Calcasieu Parish. Pending your questions, that's what I have to report from National Guard.
And if you would explain what people can get if they visit your pod and if they need your assistance as far as the lily pods, you know, how do they get it? Who do they call?
Sure. Working backwards from your questions, I don't have the number, Mr. Beam. I don't know if you have the number for the lily pad. We're supporting it in the movement. They're not calling us directly. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's not what he preferred.
Well, I was kind of referring to both. I mean, I know you're intimately familiar with what those do, but a lot of us might not be. The
So-
pods and the lily pods.
So as we get the word from the affected municipality and from the parish, we then assist in folks moving out of the parish. Let's say someone has decided to stay in their location. The location is devastated, as so many things are. It's 5 or 6 days now, and they simply can't stay anymore, and they don't have a way to get out. They may not have a vehicle. Elderly, infirm, people with different abilities. So that we would support helping move those folks out. All right, but that's a request from the parish to the municipality. We really do support the parish through the EOC. And then your other question was what's at the pod sites, and we offer water, ice, tarps, and civilian MREs. We're trying to push all 4 commodities to the pod sites. Sometimes we're short, but if we're short one thing or short 2 things, we will continue to serve the items that we have. Additional items, the Red Cross is going to brief because they have some different capabilities than we do.
Is there any assistance for people who can't live in their homes but are trying to, save some of their possessions? Is there any kind of help as far as getting it out and relocating it?
So that is not a function that the National Guard is supporting. However, I think other entities inside the parish do support that activity. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Teresa, I have learned when the military come and they use terms like lily pad, you got to learn these, and I'm still not quite sure exactly what it means, but the Colonel did a great job, I think, explaining the purpose of it. So you're not alone. Okay, I'm going to give a couple of reports. Today, Alan Wainwright normally would come during this time. He was unable to be here. I'm going to give a report on road debris clearance, but I think the bigger news is we have some new information about some solid waste drop-off sites. I'll get to that shortly. But first, I think it's been sort of said already by previous speakers, the road debris clearance throughout the parish is largely complete, mostly taking calls in where maybe we have missed something. That's great news, and it's been explained the importance of that. And very quickly, it's actually kind of already started, the debris pickup, mainly of vegetative waste, trees, branches, so forth, is already beginning, which is the next step. That's a long process, but that's important. There's so many kinds of waste. One that we're getting a lot more questions on now that people are coming back and cleaning out their refrigerators and freezers with rotted food, if you will. Our goal, as I think we may have mentioned, yesterday, the quicker we can get the trash collection routes cleared, Waste Management, who is the provider for the parish and many, if not all the cities, with the exception of Lake Charles, who does their own, we can allow that to happen. Well, they can pick up all those cans when they start running routes, but we're not quite there yet. So in the interim, and this is from our Public Works Department at the parish, but it applies for the whole parish. I'm going to read out some sites, but these are all going to be on our calcasiewparish.gov website and posted on our normal public information sites. So we have 5 sites, and this is very important. Let me just read directly from the notice. Beginning today, Tuesday, September 1st, the following temporary residential collection sites will collect household food waste only. These sites I'm about to mention are for household food waste only. These are the things that you would put in your trash can at home, if you will, that are food. And again, it's mainly because of the freezers and refrigerators that need to be dumped. Let me go ahead and say the rules first, and then I'll mention the sites. These sites will operate from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily for the time being. I don't know how long, but indefinitely. All waste must be double bagged and tied. Okay? Double bagged. No containers of any sort will be allowed to be disposed, only waste from freezers and refrigerators. Here's what we mean. If you have these big trash bins, what are they, 96 gallon? You come with that and want to throw the whole thing? No, we're not taking it. It's got to just be what's inside of those. And again, just from the refrigerators and freezers. Please do not bring storm-damaged items such as refrigerators, televisions, furniture, yard fencing, sheet metal, roofing materials, and green waste, which is tree limbs and branches, to these sites, as they will not be accepted for disposal. That's a whole different thing, which we've talked about. That's roadside type stuff. None of those will be accepted. Waste management in our case, and I think all of these sites actually, is operating these sites on our behalf through the parish. So people will see waste management trucks and so forth, because they're going to have to obviously be taken away very regularly. We expect a lot of traffic. And so the 5 sites, I'll go ahead and list those out, but again, these will be on our website for if you want to cut and paste it into some other information. The first one is at 1037 Tom Watson Road in Lake Charles. Many of you may know that. If you go down Broad Street, it's where our mosquito control office, it's that street. That's in Lake Charles, 1037 Tom Watson Road. There's one at 920 Lewis Street in Sulphur. That is the old Cow Cam Fairgrounds. Many people in West Calcasieu will know where that is. It's a big property, 920 Lewis Street, Sulphur. 461 Parish Road in Moss Bluff. That is our Ward 1 yard, we call it, the parish barn in the old days, we would call it. And for this site and the next two, for people who may not know where that is, that's where we typically have our sandbag locations, and a lot of people know that. 461 Parish Road in Moss Bluff. The next one is 7085 Louisiana Highway 14 East in Hayes. Hayes, and that's Ward 2 yard. Again, these are parish terms. Ward 2 yard. And the last one is 129 3rd Street in Starks. That is our Ward 5 yard. Again, if people know where they get sandbags, it's the same place, and it's our maintenance barns. So this is big news. That is effective now, so people can start bringing that to these sites. I'll read it one more time because it's very important. This is just household food waste only. Must be double bagged and tied. No containers will be allowed to be disposed of. Only waste from freezers and refrigerators, and all of the other waste that people have, such as furniture, TVs, tree branches, etc. That is not for this. That's separate. Before I go on to utilities, any questions on that?
As far as the other stuff like appliances and furniture and stuff like that, you've probably already talked about this, but do you want it sorted on the side of the road?
Yes, actually. No, it's a good question. We are at that point where people can and should start bringing things to the roadside, but divided into categories, as you mentioned. One would be green waste, anything that's branches, trees that you can get up there, some may be too big for now. And separated, anything that's more furniture and appliances would go in one. And Tom, if you can help me, I don't know, I think people kind of intuitively know to separate it out, but I don't know the exact categories. If you want to, Tom will read those off.
Yeah, this is from the website. Electronics, large appliances, frequently called white goods, hazardous waste, vegetative debris, construction debris, and household garbage.
Sure about hazardous? You mean non-hazardous? Oh. Well, okay. But
Okay, that's hazardous waste. This is not nuclear fallout. This is batteries, pesticides, paint, cleaning supplies, compressed gas.
What do you do with broken glass?
We don't have a broken glass stack.
Well, I just,
I think sweep it up, I'm not trying to be funny.
you want to put in the I mean, normally, I don't know.
I'd put it with the, whatever you call a construction waste, like carpet and,
Like
interior.
remodeling type
Yes,
waste?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's good, remodeling. Did that answer the question?
I
Okay.
think so.
All right, I'm going to go to the utilities now, and let's cover your electricity first. I think everybody knows the challenges we have, so they continue. But I do have Entergy provided a recent statement. It's interesting. They've finished their assessment, but they've got data just to get a sense of the magnitude. Entergy reports for their service area. They came across 6,500 damaged poles, more than 300 miles of downed wire, and 2,890 damaged transformers, which is staggering. That is all separate from what is really the biggest challenge, and that is all the transmission lines that have to be rebuilt, or transmission stations. So that gives you a sense of what they're dealing with. And they go on to, remind everybody about safety and generator use, but they're still, it's going to be a while, weeks. We don't know how many weeks, and it depends. And we did learn this morning from Entergy in a report, I believe, and I'm not going to go too far down the road, they're going to divide the parish into 7 zones, if you will, and they've got a lot more personnel coming to where we might be able to give more detailed information as they get further along by zone, as opposed to just the whole parish. They're not there yet, but they are working feverishly on that. We don't have an update from Beauregard Electric, but it's a very similar story. So as we learn more, we'll pass that on. Let's go to the water systems in the parish.
Could I just ask real quick, those
Yes.
numbers, were they Calcasieu Parish only?
Yes, that's just Calcasieu Parish.
Thanks.
Well, yes, that's true. Yeah, because they can break that out. Anything else on that, Teresa? The water systems in the parish, in our operational briefing this morning, we were told water service parish-wide is about 40% up and running. Now, keep in mind, there's so many different providers, but that's a general idea. Of course, we're familiar with this, and Nick Hunter, Mayor Hunter, is going to get more detailed later in his report, and he actually has one of his staff that's going to give a report on the water system. We know that's the biggest challenge right now, so I'll let him cover that when he gets up. So if you wait on that one, we'll come back to that when Mayor Hunter comes up. That's really all on the water. I take that back. I did want to mention, we know that when these are back online, the systems have to have boil advisories. And some are asking, well, how long do we have to do that? Well, there's very clear and strict state law on that. And in some cases, if you're on generator power, for example, you may have to stay on a boil advisory. So the key there is each city or provider can tell you why and when it's going to be continuing, but it's not automatic once the system's going. The key in all this, as we know, is getting power back. It's really at the heart of everything. Let's move on. We actually had an update today, very informative, from the educational institutions, which I'll just hit the high points. We've heard from Carl Brookhouse, Calcasieu Parish School Board Superintendent before, but he came up today and mentioned that their assessments of all of their school sites are completed. They are picking up debris, getting water out. Flat roofs will be covered hopefully by the end of next week. That is a big challenge, but they have a lot of those, as you know, school buildings. They have made significant progress on damage recovery, which are all the things about getting old wet sheetrock out, carpeting, so forth, that kind of thing. And that was his main report. Generally speaking, I believe Carl said they feel they got severe damage, but they feel better about their overall assessments than originally reported, and it's going good. They've been hit heavily, but he has a more optimistic look about the extent of the damage. We also heard from President of McNeese, Darrell Burkell. He was here today in person, and he told us that 50 buildings on the McNeese campus were impacted. Many of you will remember Hurricane Rita in 2005. We all got hit there too, but McNeese took an especially hard hit. They got it again, but he feels very good about, they learned a lot like we all did after Rita, and they did a lot more since then, and I think it's helping tremendously in their restoration. It's already started, they think, within 3 weeks or so, they'll be completed with the restoration and start repairs. He also wanted to mention that the athletic complex took a big hit, specifically the new building, Health and Human Performance, I think, but it's where, many of you will know, that's where the basketball is played. They had major damage on the roof, so that was unfortunate. Dr. Burkell, or President Burkell, mentioned that they are resuming school at McNeese on September 18th. And as you might expect, that's 100% online. They recognize that the teachers, professors, instructors, they've got to still coordinate that, and it's not going to be all, fully perfect. And he mentioned some other things, but that was the main point. September 18th, they will resume school. Lastly, Sewella, David Darbone, the facility director at Sewella, gave a report. And to use his words, when he first saw the damage, his term was pure devastation at Sewella, which, for those of you who've been here for any period of time, Sewella, in the last, 5 to 7 years, the campus is totally different. So many new, really nice buildings. They've come so far, and it's just sad to see all this. What they're doing, the Regional Training Center, which is one of those newer buildings to help with industrial training, it is better off than the others, and that will now be their recovery hub. So I believe Dr. Aspinwall may be giving future reports, but Sewella, like McNeese and the school board and the rest of us, got hit hard as well. No mention, they're still working out when they might get to resume school. I think it's still a little too early for them. Any questions on the educational facilities?
I was going to ask about natural gas, whether there are any problems with regard to, natural gas utilities, and like if you're able to light a fire on your stove or something, should you, and that sort of thing.
I'm glad you brought that up. Mayor Hunter actually has a very recent report from Centerpoint where I think he might provide some of that information. And by the way, I'm going to miss something. The Westlake and Moss Bluff areas have gas service, but those are run, I think, primarily through there's a Westlake system that goes. Kenny, you may know more than I do. I know Kenny's in Benton, but we don't have a report on that. If somebody knows the status of the gas system up there, I'm happy to say it. I just don't know it. Erica? Okay, good. One of our staff lives in Moss Bluff, and the natural gas is working there. That probably means Westlake and Moss Bluff both have gas. As far as the safety and so forth, I don't know if we have somebody that can answer that, but Centerpoint is the other provider in the parish, and we'll hear more from Mayor Hunter on that. Okay, we're going to go now to the FEMA and Red Cross updates. So we appreciate Jerry Stoller, who is here today to give a latest update from FEMA.
Thank you, Administrator Beam. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to give you an update on how we're doing with individual assistance and registrations. In Calcasieu Parish, as of this morning, there are 51,302 households that have registered for assistance, and that's easily more than 3/4 of the total registrations for the entire disaster. And that includes nearly 6,000 registrations happened yesterday, just in the 24 hours during during yesterday. There's more than, right now, as of this morning, more than $4.1 million in housing assistance has been approved for those that have applied in Calcasieu Parish. Now, we still have, housing inspections. I remember I talked a couple days ago about once a household registers. Just give you an idea how that is progressing. For the entire, for all of Calcasieu Parish, 6,479 housing inspections have been issued, and 2,162 of those inspections are currently complete. So it takes some time to get to these properties and complete that work. And there are 175 inspectors working in southwest Louisiana, not just in Calcasieu Parish, but in the affected parishes here in southwest Louisiana. So again, the whole idea of registering is so key to this process. And again, that can be done 3 ways. 1-800-362 or 621-3362. I'll repeat that again, 1-800-621-3362. You can also register by going online at www.disasterassistance.gov or by simply downloading the FEMA app on your iPhone. The next thing I want to talk about is something called critical needs assessment. Critical needs assessment has been approved for Louisiana's eligible survivors. Those having immediate or critical needs because they have been displaced from their primary residence are eligible for this. What critical needs assistance is comprised of is a one-time $500 payment per household. Eligibility criteria for this assistance includes a registration. A household must register for this assistance. The applicant must pass identity verification. When the applicant registers, they must assert that he or she has critical needs and request financial assistance for those needs. Another requirement is that the pre-disaster primary residence is in an area that's been designated by the presidential declaration, okay? And that the applicant is displaced from this pre-disaster primary resident as a result of damages from Hurricane Laura. So again, in critical needs assessment, a one-time $500 payment has been approved for all eligible residents of Louisiana who have been affected by Hurricane Laura. The next item I wanted to touch on is Operation Blue Roof. Operation Blue Roof is managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and this program has been approved for affected areas in the state of Louisiana. Roofs damaged by Hurricane Laura will be eligible for this program. This is a no-cost, temporary service giving homeowners some roofing protection. May enable them to perhaps spend a little bit more time at their home here in their community, closer to where they live or work. And this can be available until a more permanent fix can be arranged. Residents who would like to register for this program should call 888-766-3258. That number again is 888-766-3258. Now, this program is still ramping up. The Army Corps of Engineers is assembling the teams that will perform this work and also staging their materials. And there'll be further details from the Army Corps of Engineers on when when the work will actually be able to complete. But it starts again with a homeowner registering for this process. The final thing I just want to touch briefly upon, and I want to go back to, again, I think the sheriff has done a very good job of stressing the importance of being on the lookout for those that unfortunately are trying to take advantage of those who are really having a very difficult time. And again, I want to remind everyone watching this that FEMA charges no fee to register for federal assistance, and we never ask for any bank account information or any type of financial information or charge anything in that nature. And I want to remind those households that may have an inspector show up. Now, the inspectors are contracted by FEMA, so they will not have a FEMA shirt on, but they most certainly will have an identification badge. So before you let someone onto your property to inspect the damage, you be sure that they show you their credentials that identifies them as a FEMA inspector. And again, I encourage you that if you do see some activity where you don't feel that it's quite on the level, certainly encourage you to contact local law enforcement. And I also want to share with you a consumer protection hotline that is available to report such type of behavior. The consumer protection hotline can be reached at 800-351-4889. That number again to the consumer protection hotline is 800-351-4889. And subject to your questions, that concludes my update for today.
Nowadays, a lot of people can put together a pretty convincing looking badge that they might flash around. Is there anything distinctive about a FEMA badge that would help someone distinguish it from a scammer's FEMA badge?
Well, I would just look to see what if it's take a good look at it. If it looks like it's on a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard, and that should clearly be an indication that it's not legitimate. But it should also be in a fairly sturdy card holder, right? And I think it's pretty easy sometimes to for some of these folks that just try to come up with something on the fly, right? To deceive someone. But again, if you have any questions at all, you should certainly contact the local law enforcement if you're unsure about that.
And to register for a blue roof, do you have to have registered with FEMA?
No, they're totally separate programs. Okay.
Can you repeat the question because she didn't have a mic?
Okay. Yeah.
It's not on?
All right. All right, the question was, and it was a good one, does a household have to register with FEMA in order to be eligible for the Blue Roof program? And the answer is no. They're separate programs.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Red Cross. Ed Bush is going to give the report today. I had the pleasure of meeting Ed earlier, and we welcome you to Calcasieu Parish.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure to be here today. Let me begin by saying that certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who's been adversely affected by this storm. And if there's a silver lining, I think it's in the spirit and the inspiration of now everyone who's out there moving forward. It's a team that reminds you of the humanity of man, and there's good in all of us. So here in Louisiana, for the Red Cross, our priority of effort, our focus remains the same. Points of distribution, communication, and communication of needs and damage assessment. So I'll talk to points of distribution first. Essentially, we're talking about feeding points and supply points. Regarding feeding, here in Louisiana, big picture, we have 11 feeding sites in 9 cities spread over 5 parishes, distributing hot meals and water. 6 of those are in this area. I'll run through those now. We have the location at 2000 Moling, That's the Allen August Annex. And I would say that the feeding times for all these are noon and 5. The second site is 300 Hazel. That's in Sulphur. That's the McMurray Park. 2401 4th Avenue. That's Huber Park here in Lake Charles. 935 3rd Avenue. That's the Market Basket facility here in Lake Charles. DeQuincy, 915 East 4th Street. That's a dry goods store, the parking lot in front. And then 900 Horde Street in Vinton. That's the side of the Vinton Middle School. In addition to providing the hot meals and the water at that locations, certainly throughout the estate, yesterday and today we've been making drops of what we call DES, disaster emergency supplies. Essentially, it's a collection of shovels, rakes, bleach, cleaning supplies, gloves, those things that people need to sort of get their life back in order and get their house clean. We tremendous deposit of that over the last 2 days. I have 3 specific sites that have asked for us to continue dropping those supplies at those locations. And those are, again, the Market Basking Shopping Center location, the McMurray Park location, and the Huber Park location. So those 3 locations will continue to get food, but in addition to supplies. One note on feeding, good news certainly here. The Southern Baptist Group, one of our partners in feeding, is on the ground and setting up, and they're setting up in DeRidder. So that's huge because that's a lot closer to the impact area here. Up to this point, we've been having to bring our food and a lot of our workforce from Baton Rouge here, and that's caused us some hiccups along the way. And certainly, Mr. Mayor and I had a conversation today because even in spite of our best plans, we're still victim to I-10, and there was a pretty significant accident there on I-10 which jams us up. And we asked for the patience of all as we kind of work through those. But the Southern Baptist Group setting up here in DeRidder, but that's huge because they can cook tremendous amounts of food, and we're already in sync with them, and we will be delivering that food, and that gets us closer to this area, and it just certainly makes it easier on us to provide those services that you need. One note on all of that, obviously, is we expect those numbers to grow and or change, and we stay flexible, and that flexibility is key to making sure we're addressing the needs of those parishes. All of that works, that flexibility and that coordination, that being in sync, it's because we're forming those direct relationships there at the local level. And that's that second priority that I talked about, the communicating needs. So throughout the state, certainly here in this parish, we have elected official liaisons. We have people like myself who our sole function is to go out and meet those elected officials in those impacted areas, connect with them and say, how can we help you? And that's going very, very well. And that's how we're able to shift our resources to reflect the needs of those parishes. And that'll continue to what we're well through the fight. The third piece was the damage assessment teams. That's another key component, and that has already started happening as well through the impact areas. That's a slow process, but an important process. Literally, these teams go through house for house, grid for grid through impacted areas, and they have the ability to make a damage assessment there on the spot, which puts it up, and now that homeowner has a case. That's important because that step allows that homeowner, that impacted person, to begin to get a little bit of financial assistance on the Red Cross side as well. One comment on our workforce, big picture. So here, as of this morning, the numbers that I briefed the governor this morning, we have 623 staff and volunteers here in Louisiana. I was scrolling through that list, and I saw well over 30 different states. So it is an outpouring of support nationwide, here on the ground and virtually, but all of them in this fight. And it is the strength of that volunteer force that allows us to provide these services. And I would just say that, again, we're able to provide all these services free of charge because of the generosity of the volunteer force. And we continue to try to solicit volunteers and make it easy in a virtual and an on-the-ground environment. But we're constantly looking for volunteers. With that, it's my pleasure to be up here today, and pending your questions, that concludes my report.
Are you doing the damage assessments based on appointment, or just as you happen to see a house that has problems? And if you do a damage assessment, I mean, what is the potential assistance you can give?
So as I understand the process, it's literally the homeowner doesn't need to be there. Essentially, literally, that damage assessment individual will go house for house, and then later on, we'll go through the coordinations to find the homeowner, whether or not they're there or not. That assessment begins to happen. So in some cases, that homeowner may not be home, but that assessment has already taken place, and then we link up after the case. As far as the actual dollar amount, it varies from house to house based on how many members in the house, the degree of damage. So I don't want to necessarily throw out a number, but
Sure.
it's going to vary based on your damage and how many people live there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? We are here to the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ed. We will hear now from a few elected officials as we come toward the end of the briefing. We'll hear first from Police Jury Vice President Brian Abshire.
Thank you, Brian. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say thank you to the National Guard, to the American Red Cross, to all the first responders that have been here. We wouldn't be this far 5 days after this storm without all their help, all their assistance. I want to remind homeowners, as you get contractors looking at your house, be careful, be sure they're carrying general liability insurance, be sure they have workers' comp, and certainly do not prepay for your services before they're completed. You know, be sure that the work is done before you end up paying for things. You can get more details on how to handle those kind of issues on the Better Business Bureau website. That being said, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We'll hear next from Town of Benton Mayor Kenny Stinson.
I didn't need to one-up you, Nick. I'd just like to give a few details from Benton. Some of this will be repeated. I'd like to thank the National Guard for the pod. The pod opened today at Benton Elementary School at 1600 Hampton. We're asking the residents to line up on Hampton off of Hard Street. It's been running like a well-oiled machine. That National Guard, they got their stuff together, and we really appreciate what they do. As the Red Cross told you, they're doing a feeding at Benton Middle School at noon and 5, and we appreciate them also. Also like to thank all the volunteers that come in. We have received an outpouring of volunteers cooking for us. Southern Boys Outdoors, they came in and did jambalaya. We've had many people, Benton people, that have come back that's not here anymore and brought supplies. We have a KC Hall full of supplies, and I'd like to announce that we're going to be giving, the KC Hall will open tomorrow for distribution starting at 9 to 11, and again from 2 to 4. Those items that they have there are baby wipes, diapers, formula, rice, beans, pasta sauce, toilet paper, paper towels, milk, snacks, chips, canned goods, beef, breakfast foods, personal and oral hygiene, basic first aid, house cleaning products, laundry cleaning products, paper goods, and dog food. So all this stuff that we're giving out has been donated. So we're very appreciative to all those that have donated for that. We'd like to talk a little about our debris. Our debris contractor got started today picking up debris. We just ask our residents to watch out for the water hydrants and water meters, that they don't stack things on top, and to please stack vegetative debris in one pile and C&D construction debris in another pile. I'd like to talk a little bit about the water. We finally got our water up yesterday. We're pretty sure we do have a few sections of town that we're still having some problems with. But we do want to remember there is a boil advisory in effect for our town until further notice. Our phones at City Hall are still down. Our internet is spotty. So if you have my phone or if you want to come, there's people at City Hall at all times to give out information. I do want to thank all of our electrical contractors that are in town. We have over 65 individuals with different agencies, but the majority of them come from Lafayette Utility System. They're just a great bunch. They have helped us many, many times in storms, and they know what they're doing. As of today, they have 100% of our 13.8 kV line up. They're working on our low voltage, our 4 kV 4160, and they said probably by the middle of next week they'll have it all up. The problem is we'll be ready, but our transmission won't be ready. So we'll be waiting for Entergy, and we're hoping that they get their stuff together so where they can bring us electricity. Again, I just want to thank all the volunteers that have stepped forward. We appreciate you, and that's Vinton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Stinson. We appreciate, Kenny and some of the other mayors who live in the outlying areas. It's a long way to come speak for these, but we appreciate that. Our last speaker today is Mayor Nick Hunter of Lake Charles.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening. So progress is the philosophy of today, Tuesday, September 1st. Have a couple updates. Was able to speak again with the CEO of Centerpoint this morning, Dave Lazar, and Centerpoint released a statement saying that gas service is flowing and available to all customers who are able to receive in the Lake Charles area. We are substantially complete with all of our assessments and are actively surveying the area for any hazardous leaks. We have confirmed with our pipeline suppliers they are able to supply our needs and are working closely with them. We are working to actively locate our underground facilities in the vicinity of damaged Entergy poles to aid in restoration and avoid further damage to infrastructure. We have suspended disconnects in the region for the foreseeable future. We have a workforce located at our offices on Gerstner Memorial that is being housed and fed at the location to support the relief efforts. So good news from Centerpoint there, I believe. And then, excuse me one moment. Also, City of Lake Charles, progress. All right, I'm just going to read this because this is a lot of information. So, beginning tomorrow, Wednesday, September 2nd, citizens will be able to drop off spoiled goods from their refrigerators and freezers at the following locations between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. I highly suggest you use these locations. I was out in the neighborhoods today. You could definitely start to smell some of the refuse from refrigerators and freezers. Corporal Donald Ray Stevens, Rec Center at 1619 Cessford Street. Henry Heights Rec Center, 801 East School Street. Weaver Park Ball Fields, 4436 Weaver Road. Please note that these sites will only accept materials from inside your freezer or refrigerator. The city anticipates resuming our normal collection routes on Monday, September 7th. Who would have thought you would have been so excited for just the normalcy of trash pickup? We have waited until next week because we are still concerned about some of the low-hanging power lines. We certainly don't want our garbage trucks to get caught up in those, but we've been very reassured that Entergy is working as hard as possible to remedy that. And so garbage pickup will start next week, Monday, September 7th. Contractors are expected to begin the process of roadside debris collection by the end of this week. Residents should place debris as close to the roadside as possible without placing it in the roadway. Contractors cannot come onto private property to collect debris. Vegetative debris such as tree limbs should be separated from other construction demolition debris, similar to what Mr. Beam already described a moment ago. I'm also happy to report that as we continue to visit the neighborhoods and walk through the neighborhoods, the streets of Lake Charles are 98% cleared, and at least to the point where they are traversable. However, we still know that traffic is a concern, and we urge people to be very cautious when they're driving. If you don't need to be out on the roads, please do not. We're also very happy to report that at this moment in time, with coordination from the State Fire Marshal, the State Fire Marshal's office and their men and women have knocked and checked on every door in the city of Lake Charles to make sure that individuals have the opportunity to evacuate if they wanted to do so. I think that's an amazing task that's already been completed. And I thank the State Fire Marshal for working with us on that task. As we were out and about today, we still encounter individuals who we have been encouraging to consider the evacuation option. I encountered one gentleman who was in a wheelchair today, and I was begging him to accept the option of evacuation, which is still available right now in Lake Charles. We are having city employees basically pick people up and just hotshot them over to Chenault, working with the National Guard and the state to get these individuals to either hotel rooms or a shelter. And we know that the hotel rooms are certainly more preferable, but we also know that they're a rare commodity right now. But even at a shelter, we're trying to get a lot of our citizens to understand that's going to be a safer environment and probably a more comfortable environment than at your home right now without electricity, with limited supply of water, and some of these structures we're encountering really should not be inhabited at the moment. So there may be a lot of people in Lake Charles that aren't hearing this message because they're not seeing it on the internet or on TV. But if you have friends or family members in Lake Charles, please encourage them that that option is still available. We can get them out of Lake Charles into a safe location. And if they or you would call 491-1354, a City of Lake Charles employee, probably someone with the fire department, it could be another agency, would bring them to Chenault, where they would load a bus and get to a safe location. Last thing, I know everybody's asking about water, and I brought a good friend of mine, someone that has been an absolute soldier and hero through this process. Our city employees have worked so hard, and a lot of times we gravitate immediately towards public safety and law enforcement. And our